Are you ready to connect with the core of yourself and your practice? Join over 400 professionals at the 78th Illinois Counseling Association Annual Conference in Oak Brook, Illinois, November 5th through 7th. This year's theme is Being Human, featuring an exclusive pre-conference with me, private practice innovator Joe Sanok, plus tons of different sessions on women's mental health and on therapeutic tools. You're going to earn CEs, have buffet lunches, and network at the welcome reception with me. Even get free professional headshots. Register over at ilcounseling.org. Again, that's ilcounseling.org by August 31st to secure your early bird discount. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1406. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice you absolutely love. We want both sides of that. We want you to thrive. We want you to know about marketing, SEO, the business side of having a practice, but we also want you to love it. We don't want you to feel like, oh man, I built something that makes my life worse. No, we want you to love your practice, love your clients, love the impact you're making on your community. So we cover things that are clinical. We cover things that just bring you joy, things that are just human type things. And we also cover the business basics. Now, today, I am so excited. We are going to be talking AI. We're going to talk SEO. We're going to talk about so many things with Stephan Bajaio, who is the CEO and co-founder of VibeLogic, which he helps organizations turn their internal expertise into content that builds trust and drives growth. With decades of experience in SEO and digital marketing, he's worked across industries to align strategy, content, and search performance. His work focuses on closing the gap between what companies know and how they show up online. Stephan is particularly interested in how to maintain authenticity and human connection in an increasingly AI-driven marketing landscape. Stephan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe. Wow, what an introduction. I'm on a lot of shows, and I got to tell you, that was a really great bio, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephan, let's start with just AI in general. So what I'm seeing is a bunch of crap that just keeps getting on my feed. Thank God some of it says AI generated. But I feel like in general, just, AI is just ruining so many things. So, you see these beautiful landscapes on TikTok and you're like, oh, that was AI. In fact, I was even with my daughters in Greece over spring break earlier this year. And I kid you not, we're standing there looking at the Greek landscape, these amazing cliffs. And my daughter, who's 11, says, Dad, this is so beautiful. It's like it's AI. It was just like a stab in my heart, just like the real life thing now. People are just like, that's so beautiful. It looks like AI. Whew, like what the heck? So today I'm super excited about our conversation because I think we're gonna get some of the humanity back into the intelligence side of artificial intelligence. But let's just start with, tell me about how you got into marketing, SEO, AI, and then we'll definitely talk about deconstructing what we should be doing with AI.
Sure. So, well, first and foremost, I have a deep passion for mental health. Have been on I've never been the clinician, but I've been on the therapy side for decades. And I mean that in the greatest sense of, I'm so happy that the stigma and other things around mental health has dissipated in our culture and society. So that's first and foremost, and makes me super happy. It's always been near and dear to my heart, and it's always been something I've wanted to promote to anyone around me because I think it's part of a healthy lifestyle. Not that I have the healthiest, but it's definitely part of a healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So, I happen to fall into SEO. I was working at Yahoo, and I was dealing in some of the sales aspects of job boards and this and that. And I happened to go to a company that was based on link building. And they were a very small company. We grew that company very quickly. And we realized that this was all to kind of help companies rank, big companies. We're talking Marriott, Siemens, you name it, Apple, Uber, all these companies to grow in terms of their rankings in Google. And while we were doing that, we realized, like, hold on a second. The biggest companies in the world don't have software to actually track how effectively they're doing this stuff. And a lot of them didn't even have people charged with doing it. Like I used to joke, SEO was Stefan's employment opportunities because like nobody knew what that was, right? I raised more wristwatches than eyebrows when I had dinner conversations about this stuff, right? A little bit more understood now. But we built this company called Conductor, and it was a SaaS enterprise SEO platform. I built it for about 12 years out. We got acquired by WeWork. We bought ourselves back from WeWork. It was valued at $500 million. It's a crazy story. There's lots of stuff to it. But the really, shorthand of that is I got to look into the largest, most complex businesses in the world, sit across from the most notable CEOs, CMOs in the world, essentially, tell them the truth about their marketing and their content and what they were missing, but most importantly, notice what they were doing right and wrong. And so I had that experience. I decided after it was, 14 years total at Conductor overall, I said, okay, it's time to go. I went to do the CMO stint to see how the other half lived. And then, when that kind of didn't pan out in terms of funding, I said, well, it's finally time I start my own agency. I've been talking about it. I built one inside of Conductor from 0 to 65 people. I really want to help businesses, large and small. I feel like there's value here, and a lot of the businesses, frankly, that could get things done don't know what to do. So these lessons that I've learned, right, and the 10,000 hours, so to speak, that I've had of expertise in this, talking about it all over the world on stages, as well as, luckily, in this podcast, I have all this knowledge to give. I want to give it. I want to give it. I want to help people perform better. And what better to do that with than mental health, in that there's huge value there, right? If you can just solve the problem of there's someone out there with a deep emotional need at 2:37 a.m. who goes to the search bar and enters in their biggest fear. Am I not a good parent, right? Maybe they're having postpartum. Maybe they're having concerns about their mental health. Why am I feeling the anxiety I'm feeling? They're describing their needs in their language and they're putting them into a search engine. And then the question is, what shows up? Who shows up? Who gets to answer that? Who has the right to answer it? And how is it being answered? So I fell into AI in that, like, frankly, in the world of AI now, people are just firing off more content, more. And as you said, it's not always the best, right? In fact, most likely it's just a regurgitation of the same crap that was already out there. So there's this like emotional dullness to it. There's a lack of connection. There's a serious problem with online content. In fact, one of the things we can talk about is AI generated content. So when you go to ChatGPT or you go to Claude or you go to Perplexity or you go to Gemini or one of the 100 other systems and you have it write articles for you, Google recognizes that, knows that's bad, and actually, while they'll let it rank for a little while, you're building your site on a house of cards. They will ultimately come by with an algorithm, and they have, and all of a sudden you lose all your traffic. So it's a bit of a fool's errand, so to speak, in doing that. So I would highly recommend against it. But anyway, that was a long answer to your short question. Sorry.
No. Well, like, let's get into AI because we're talking about, when you can ignore AI, when you should use it, especially specifically for SEO. So let's just talk about where are we in 2026 when it comes to SEO, and then we can talk about how AI can help you with that and how it can hurt you and when you can ignore it. We can dig into all that, but where are we at right now in regards to SEO in 2026?
Well, I mean, it's funny to say this. The nuances of SEO most businesses should not care about. Like, that's not your business, right? Like, I'm not going to figure out how to deploy EMDR for someone, right? That's newer. It's newer than CBT. And it takes someone who knows what they're doing. So while AI will promise you, oh, yeah, I can do SEO this way for you, that way for you, all these people say, get rich quick, press the easy button. Boy, do I wish there was an easy button in life. There is no easy button, right? Don't buy into that. First things first is you need a professional to help you understand what to do. Then it comes down to content, right? Like the reality is, I notice frequently that we shortcut things. It's just nature, and AI is kind of helping us do that, right? It's like, oh yeah, just this is the easy button. Just put a prompt in, and then all of a sudden, boop, magically appears the answer to the problem. But the reality is, it's not that simple. So what I've noticed is you'll find any service provider, but often mental health providers won't even build service-related pages for their practice. So all of a
Mm.
sudden they'll list, we do EMDR, CBT, this, that, the other. And they're like, okay, well, I don't need a page for each of those. Wrong.
Mm.
Not only do you need a page for each of those, you need a few articles that talks about those things to validate not only to the search engines that you are an expert in what you say you are, because by the way, now that we have the ability for any Joe Blow to show up and just put whatever they want on the internet quickly, what's called EAT in Google, which is experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, are a metric by which they judge your site. So they want to know there's a real human. Joe is behind this website. They want to know that Joe has credentials. They want to know who Joe is and that he's a real person, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to mental health. We're not messing around here, right, guys? We're dealing in something that has true, I don't want to say always life and death, because that is a very drastic version of mental health, but there are repercussions to not providing mental health correctly to people, and that anyone can just hang a shingle and say, I do this. That's not what you all went to school for, went through all that training for in order to get to, right? So the lowest common denominator is going to be AI. The highest common denominator is to recognize, hey, if I were to build a page devoted to EMDR, for example, if I just had that as a bullet point of one of the services I provide, that bullet point could be the entire solution someone needs. So their entire universe lives in that solution. Or, we're talking about it in the context of the modality, but we're not talking about it in context of the problem. Individuals don't realize EMDR or CBT are the solution to their problem. Sometimes they search those because they've
Yeah.
done some research, but often they're looking for their own problem. I'm having anxiety. I feel it this way. They don't describe it in clinical language. That is still missing on the average site. People are not speaking the language that's being typed into the search bar. No one lies to the search bar, right? It is a very honest place. When they do that and they put their fears and their intentions and their concerns in there, if you're calling it postpartum depression, which is fine, that's what it may be, or you're calling it baby blues,
Mm-hmm.
people aren't typing in, I have baby blues, right? They're saying, why do I not feel good about being a parent,
Mm.
right? They're typing in terms that are the way they express the problem. Now, I hate the fact that some of the best therapies and therapy clinics and best therapists in the world aren't there to answer that question. They're not there. They're not showing up, right? And so it becomes a race to the bottom, a race to commoditization, a race to who put the word on the page. It's not just about ranking. Once you rank and you show up, you then have to earn the right? And I can tell you this by having looked at tons of websites in the mental health space. The average user will go to a page, a service page, and I can see where they click. It doesn't tell me personal information, but it shows me how they're moving, right? Something called Clarity provided by Microsoft. It's a free thing you can put on your website. Highly recommend everyone does. But if you don't know how to do any of that, that's fine. You have experts, Joe, myself, others, they can help you probably implement those things. So you can see that the individuals that come to the site, they often go to the blog. They want to read something from the practitioner before they invest the time and effort of going there.
Mm.
Like the best example of this is how many people who are trying therapy for the first time go to 5 therapists? They don't. They usually go to one. If that one doesn't automatically click, they either write it off completely and say, well, therapy's not for me, baby out with the bathwater, or I'll try one more.
Mm.
but you don't see them shop around. Well, the reason they're not shopping around, and the reason to get around, the way to get around that, is to allow them to get to know you, who you are, because after all, you are the product in this case. I hate to say it, but you are the product. You're what's being sold. So if your bio page is just a written thing about your CV, great, but I don't feel any human connection there. There's no video. There's no blog posts that were written by you so I can know who you are. And before I start investing, sitting in an office with you for 5 sessions to give it enough time to know if this is going to click or not, give me the ability to feel your tone, understand you, understand what you're like through your writing, through videos, through things that show me what I'm about to invest my time and effort into, right? If I like what I'm seeing online, there's a high probability I'm going to go to that form and type in, yeah, I'd like to set up a meeting. We see that actually happen with clients of ours. We see their clients go and read one or two blogs before they fill out something. So the reality is the web's kind of it's become this egalitarian place that it doesn't matter. You could have way more credibility, frankly, or diplomas on the wall than your competitor, but if they're doing a better job in that cold dark web, right, of providing themselves in a better way to that same person who would look at both your sites, they might never get to you guys. They they might never click and follow to the next one and see who else is out there, because if someone really connects with me online, I can take the next step. I don't need to. I wasn't looking to shop around and figure all this out. So is your language empathetic? Are you putting things that help me understand what I'm about to sign up for? Are you talking about what does a first session look like, right? These are things you can write about. I mean, you don't have to be this author, and wax poetic about therapy, but you are an expert after all. And I'm always shocked at the way that mental health professionals often seem humble in a certain way, that they don't want to promote themselves, but what they're not recognizing is that visibility is actually care. Like showing up in a time and place that's on the terms, literally in the terms and on the terms of the consumer, is not promotion. It's help. It's care. I usually wear a t-shirt that says, if you're not helping people, you're just selling stuff. So I highly believe that you didn't get into this business to sell more, right? Because at the end of the day, like, therapists are limited. If you're a self-practitioner, you're limited. You have a limited number of hours that you can provide, and that's it. And then if you have a practice, well, then there's still a limit to the number of hours. And if you have multiple practices where you've got multiple locations and so forth, you also still have a limit. There's not unlimited amount, right? So the question is, what are the things that are going to concern the folks who end up on your site? How are you speaking to them? How are you making sure they feel you? They feel empathy, right? Because AI is not going to be very good at empathy, let's be honest, right? So all that slop that kind of shows up for a little while and dissipates and whatever, be the smart practitioner. Be the one who says, you know what? This is where AI comes in, right? You're not a good writer? Awesome. Perfectly fine. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to get a note taker like Fireflies or anything else, a Zoom, whatever method you use. I guarantee you there's probably a transcription service built into it, which is kind of funny because we used to pay for those as marketers. We don't do that anymore. Have it transcribe everything you say. When you have it ask you, have the AI or something ask you 5 questions about topic X. Ask it to ask them in the context. So it's always about the prompt and how well you put the prompt in. But let's say, hey, ChatGPT, imagine I'm a mother struggling with postpartum depression, but I don't call it that. Put yourself in her shoes. What are the 5 things she would need to hear to feel comfortable about moving forward with therapy? I'm a therapist who provides da 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 da. Please ask me questions regarding that. I'll answer, and then you take the transcript of that, edit it up a little bit, or pay, your assistant intern, whoever you have in the office to do that. It's not a very high price thing to do. And you just got yourself a blog post right there.
Mm.
That's it. That's where AI can come in and help you, right? It can help you turn things that might have been harder to do easier, but don't let it replace you, right? You don't go write me a blog about postpartum depression. You don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? So have it empower you. Yeah.
Something I hear over and over from practice owners in the Practice Academy is the one class I never was taught in grad school was how to run my business. And honestly, I felt that same thing. It's not a personal failing, but it's a gap in how we train clinicians. You build something that's real, your private practice, and nobody handed you a playbook for intake, billing, team management, or what it actually takes to scale past a handful of clinicians. That's what Valent is built for. Valent is the EHR designed exclusively for behavioral health group practices. With 2 decades of experience, 13 million clients engaging in their EMR, and 28,000 providers using their platform, Valent offers the tools that close the gap in your documentation, billing, and operations. Also, they include AI that handles the admin work so that your team will stay focused on your clients. Valent created a free interactive resource specifically for group practice owners like you. It's called Breaking Through the Growth Ceiling. It's called Breaking Through the Growth Ceiling. In literally 5 minutes, it pinpoints your biggest bottleneck right now with a 90-day playbook to fix it. It is awesome. So if you want to break through the ceiling of growth that you feel like you just haven't been able to break through, grab that for free over at valent.io/Joe. That's valent.io/Joe. Valent is spelled VALANT.io/Joe. Yeah, I think that idea of like how does it help you brainstorm differently? So like you were saying, people probably aren't searching postpartum depression in the middle of the night. They're saying, I'm feeling really cranky in my marriage and I just had a baby. But maybe the average therapist isn't able to put their mind kind of in that way of saying, what are those prompts? So I think that's where saying, okay, I want to serve people dealing with postpartum depression. What are some terms you think that they might think to Google at 2 a.m. when they're frustrated, and then maybe
Right.
describe the symptoms? They're feeling anxiety, they're feeling sad, they're feeling tired, they're feeling hungry, they feel like they don't matter, whatever their things are. What might they Google? And then to just look at, what are those terms? And then where does that resonate with you as a clinician? Like, oh, okay. Sometimes, when I'm working with consulting clients, when we start talking about, blogging and creating content, and whether it's social or their blogs, just getting them talking about their therapy clients, like what you're saying, is so helpful. So someone has anxiety. Are all anxieties the same? They're like, oh no, there's like 5 types of anxiety. Boom, 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 boom. And it's like, okay, there's 5 paragraphs and 5 blog posts that you can just link
Preach.
together.
Preach.
And then it's like,
Preach.
you go into one of those and it's like, okay, so what is like, I don't know, like depression in the middle of summer when you're supposed to be happy? Like,
Right.
why does that happen? Where does it happen? When, like, what age does it happen? Are there
Root
hormones
causes.
involved? Like,
Absolutely.
each
Root
one of those
causes.
choose your own adventures can be a social media post. It can be so many different things. And to me, when therapists just start talking, that's when they realize they have so much content inside of them.
Wisdom. So I've always said this, and I say this to companies all over the world. Your greatest asset in an AI world is unique data. Unique data. That's something the AI does not have, right? Everyone has ChatGPT, everyone has Claude, everyone has access to the same product that can spit out the same stuff. The difference is the nuance of what you have in your organization that's data. So, for example, one of the greatest examples, or a few really good examples I think I have of this in the wild to bring this home for you guys. Definitely some freebies in here, so get ready for them. One, couples counseling. Okay, what are the causes of why couples need counseling? Right there, you've got blog posts. One of the best performing posts I've ever seen: sexless marriage. Why? There's a stigma to it. People don't actually talk about it, but they sure search it in the search bar, right? They know that's an issue. They're describing an issue in their relationship, but they're not putting it in clinical terms per se. They're just saying, marriage doesn't include sex. What do I do about that? Now, who answers, how they answer, and what they're told to do about it, that's up to you guys. That's your wisdom. That's your ability to do it. But here's another thing, and Joe, like spot on. Thank you. By the way, folks, there's a reason you're tuning into this guy. He knows what he's talking about. You don't need to hear that from me, but I'd rather just put it out there because I respect when someone is an expert in their field. Here's a great example in my mind of something that gets missed. Let's talk about grief counseling for a second. We could have a page that just says grief counseling, and then it talks about how you guys handle grief. But grief isn't one thing, we agree, right? You have post traumatic grief, which is a sudden death, something like that. You have loss of a parent, which is evergreen. We will always lose parents in our lives. You have loss of a child, which is very specific, unexpected, and really not natural from a nature's perspective, right? We're not supposed to go through that. So there's a different kind of pain there. There's a different kind of message there. If you use one broad brush to paint everyone, how does that feel to the person on the other side of the screen? Now, let's take this in an exact example and something I think you could do tomorrow and then multiply this times 10. But you have to be willing to make your business larger than it is right now. So you have to want to expand. You have to want to acquire more clients. You have to want to help more people. If you're in that mindset, here's an example of what I do. Pet loss. Pet loss is very specific because pet loss is something that has a stigma to it for those who don't understand it. So if you, for example, have, a patient has a pet, they lose. When is that unhealthy? Grief. And when that grief becomes unhealthy, when they go to other people who don't have pets, they look at them and say, well, why isn't this person over the death? This happened a year ago. Stephan's still not over the death of his dog. Okay? So, one, the care they have around them has a stigma. Where does your audience of pet grief and pet loss intersect with someone else's? Veterinary offices.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best thing a vet can do after they put your pet down? Give you a hug? Why aren't they giving you 3 blog posts from the local therapy office that says, hey, 1, it's okay to have these feelings. 2, if these feelings get out of hand, this is what that looks like and you may need help. 3, the thought of another pet shouldn't be guilt ridden or whatever it is, right? So the point is, like, you could have 3 things. They could be a booklet. It's really easy to do. You could have GPT and other things help you author it, like think through the ways to think about it and what do I need to put in there and how. Ask me questions about this that I would want to answer. Now all of a sudden you've given the local vet offices something they can give to the people who are now going to mourn. It's helpful. You've given them something for free to provide to their own folks. There's an intersect between their need and potentially your service. And at the very least, you've helped people without even having them in your room.
I had a consulting client. She was visually impaired, and we helped her niche in, and she niched into the death of a service animal. So even going deeper than what you're talking about, and her entire
awesome.
practice. And because she was visually impaired, she mostly did online counseling, but she blew up because, there wasn't someone that was focusing on that niche.
That's amazing. And if it's online too, and if she has the right to multiple states as well, because I'm assuming that that's not service animals are kind of over-indexed in cases where they're not but anyway, point being, I can absolutely see that as being an amazing niche market. And that's a great example of even taking what I talked about and going a level deeper, right? Take the same thing and think about it in the legal profession. A lawyer's got to tell the mom or the dad in the divorce who's hearing that the kids are being affected by this, have to tell them somewhere to send the children. They can't just deal with it,
Right.
They're going to hear about the problems. So them having someone to partner with and send you over to that's an actual, safe, trusted referral is very important. But those things need to be validated. You shouldn't just show up and say, well, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest therapist in the area, blah, blah, blah. Look at my reviews. No, you probably should, seed the market, seed the lawyers to know these things. And, this is the kind of thing that, you might want to start providing to people because they are going to refer people to you.
Mhm.
So, thinking a little bit outside of the box, thinking more humanistically about the way people consume content, the way they express their problems, frankly, the stuff that happens in your rooms every day. But somehow when we go online, we seem to think, well, that's not my practice, or that's not me. Or, it's so funny to me how many people take the time to make sure their practice looks and feels a particular way, and in order to appeal and essentially um, make those attending therapy feel comforted, right? And yet the online version of that is just like,
Mhm.
boop, it's a
Stefan,
sideshow.
so in the last couple of minutes, I want to ask just kind
Yeah.
of one more question. So I've been, publicly creating Great Lakes online counseling. So I had a counseling practice, sold that in 2019, took a break from it, and been publicly building this company, and every week doing, doing kind of an update on it. So this is a company that over time it's going to serve all of the Great Lakes states. So, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota,
Hmm.
Pennsylvania, and New York. And who knows, maybe even Ontario. so, uh, so when it comes to SEO in multi-states, because a lot of our consulting clients and people in the Practice Academy, they may start in one state, but then either they get licensed or they hire people with multiple licenses, and they're in Michigan and they're like, I want to start ranking in Illinois. They're not going to open maybe an extra office there, so they can't really do the Google thing where they, get the postcards sent and have to show all the
Hmm.
pictures. How do online companies, when they're almost entirely online, or even if you have one place and you're expanding into another state or region, how do you start to rank in those areas?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're definitely at a disadvantage if you don't have the brick and mortar aspect of being able to have a Google business profile for that. So that's just one, right? Which is why whenever you can establish a hub or something in a state, I often say do it if you can, even if it's just like a room, right? It's still worth having because of the ability to do that. Um, the reality is you need local pages. You need some local pages devoted to those states. Some of the things I like to do, I definitely do this more at a city level, not as much as state level. States are a little bit harder, but states have more stats. Your local page where you provide links to all the services you provide, which again, you're not going to go build a state based service link for every state. Like that becomes too much of a directory. You're becoming Psychology Today at this point, and that's not what you're meant to be. Um, what's more interesting though is there are statistics for different cities, statistics about certain services and needs within cities that you can then create pages, or on the local pages you can provide that content. So
Mm,
now you're grounding it in why is this page really specific to that state. If there's a high propensity for X or for Y or for Z, and you can do the research in AI, but always remember AIs make stuff up. That's their job. Their job is to predict what's going to come next, not necessarily to give you quote unquote facts. They're not a fact machine. They try to be, but they're not necessarily. So do your research, bring that back, and start putting those on city pages, for example. If you're providing health to a city, well, you know what? If that city has a high propensity of postpartum, or a great example also where you might actually create separate pages or blog posts for particular places. We did one for a university. So we knew this university was so big, they had 50,000 students and in a location, and they even publish every year their mental health guide of the problems that students are going through on that campus.
mm,
Now, here's the thing: students have a stigma of going to the mental health clinic on campus. Also, students tend to, this is a generalization, good insurance. So that's a pretty prime audience that if you're accepting insurance could be they could be your patients and they could come in, but they need to know about you. And so we literally created an entire page for that university to perform for their needs, right? So I say, like, yeah, you can try to be everywhere, but I actually think the point of niching, to your point, and going after specific targets within those physical locations is going to bear more fruit. And
Yeah.
then overall, the thing about SEO is the more you rank for similar things and you get the credibility in Google, the higher the tide rises and all
Mhm.
ships go up together on it. You're allowed to show up for bigger terms, more meaty terms, and so forth. The money is in that long tail term. When I say long tail, it's usually a term that's not searched as much because people don't put in the exact same string of words into the search engine. But the intention of someone putting in a lot of words usually is incredibly high. They know what they want, they're expressing it. Now, if you could just give me a page that serves that, high high conversion rate,
Mhm.
always very high, right? The problem is there's thousands of those words and you're not going to build thousands of pages.
Yeah.
So it's creating pages that I can actually solve 3 or 4 issues on them. But
You know,
hopefully that helps a little bit. I mean, again, it's really hard as a company trying to be in all of those different markets, but I think online is definitely the way to go. So online therapy, leading with that, the
mhm.
credentials of the therapist to work in those states, being on those pages, linking to the bios of the therapists that they could see. By the way, if your bio pages, folks, doesn't have a video of yourself, like, I know some of you don't like the camera, but we're all willing to get on these Zoom things. Like,
Yeah.
just do a quick one, record it, have it there, a few blog posts at minimum that you've written.
Mhm.
Make yourself a little more personable. I mean, I've seen a dentist site
Mhm.
where the dentist is like, the dentist outside of work. And it's like they have a picture of their family. You don't need to show your kids in Orlando, but I'm just saying, like, people go that length. And let me tell you, I'm more likely to go to that dentist than the one I randomly found online that's
Yeah.
not, doesn't say anything about them. So people trust people. Just
Yeah.
don't forget that.
Stefan, the last question I always ask is if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
You've lost your way when it comes to online. Like, stop treating online like an afterthought. More people, if done right, will engage with your website than will ever walk into your office. The question is, are you only interested in dealing with people if they pay you, or are you in the business of helping people? If you're in the business of helping people, you don't have to worry about getting patients. They will come. The patients will come. It's almost like Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. The reality, though, is there is more need in the cold, dark internet than there is help. And your choice not to be there isn't helping.
Mm. So awesome. Stefan, if people want to work with you, if they want to talk more about SEO or AI, where should we send them?
Sure. You can look me up on LinkedIn. That's kind of like my main place. So it's StephanBajaio at LinkedIn. You can look me up online. You'll find me. VibeLogic.com is my organization, my company. You can absolutely reach out to us there. More than happy to have conversations and guide people. It's really, not everyone is going to be the right client, but everyone deserves knowledge to be able to share their own good. So happy to provide that in whatever ways I can. And I know I've done that today with Joe. So I feel good about myself.
So awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show. We're glad you feel good about yourself.
Hopefully, I mean, you guys validate it.
It's been awesome. As I was talking to Stefan, one thing that came to mind as I'm building Great Lakes Online Counseling is, because it's online, and when he said, city-based pages, I could go after Grand Rapids, Detroit, Lansing, Ann Arbor, the bigger markets, but how many clients does it actually take to fill up a therapist? Like 20 to 25. So why not look at, some of the data and say, well, where are the insurances covering people that we take? Where is the biggest need? Maybe even talking to that insurance, maybe even talking to, since we're focusing on post-divorce folks, maybe even talking to attorneys, talking to other folks that are in that community, like, hey, how are therapists post-divorce, post-betrayal, co-parenting, things like that. If they're like, oh man, I don't have anybody. Whereas if I call Grand Rapids, they might have 10 or 20 people that they could send to. Because we're online, we can look at these rural markets and say, hey, we can serve you, and it may be even worth it for me to drive over there, and you'll meet a bunch of people in a day, and maybe even make some of these kind of handouts that Stephan was talking about. So, so many great ideas, not just for your private practice, but for my growing one also. And hopefully you all are following that journey as we build Great Lakes Online Counseling. Again, I'm only giving myself 2 hours a week to work on this business. I'm documenting it publicly, and the goal is that within 5 years, it would be to the point that I'd want to sell it, or I could choose to keep it and have it be passive. So follow that journey here on the podcast. Every week we're putting it in there. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. If you want some help with your maybe consulting, maybe you want us to hold your hand and want to work with one of our 8 consultants, that could be me, it could be one of our other specialists, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/apply, and then we will have a 30-minute conversation. We get probably 5 to 10 people a week that I'm talking to, so we don't have to hard sell you into anything. It's literally just, are you going to go at the speed you want? Is it within the budget you want? And if it's a fit, awesome. If not, we have a lot of lower priced products too that we can point you to. So really low pressure over at practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Also, we couldn't do the show without our sponsors. Hey, special thanks to Valent today for sponsoring this show. They put together an amazing resource. It's going to take you 5 minutes to quickly evaluate what's stopping your growth. It's going to pinpoint your biggest bottlenecks right now and give you a 90-day playbook to fix it. You can download that totally free over at valent.io/Joe. That's VALANT.io/Joe to grab that resource. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.